All right, so this is a quarterfinal winners bracket quarterfinal game from the Alpha Navigators Cup number 23 weekly played earlier this weekend. Starring in this case a floophead in the blue infernal and his opponent msrm in the red infernal, spawning here on Broken Crown. And we see msrm opening Conclave into lower ground vault, and floophead calling tag your it also with some lower ground with double conclave. So we're gonna get a interesting two different builds, double conclave versus a vault conclave. And msrm sees these two conclaves right at the doorstep, and apparently that was all the scouting he wanted. And floophead also completing his scouting. It wasn't, I didn't see if he made it up to the top here and saw the conclave himself, but usually that's what you're looking for. And then teleports home. Looks like maybe taking a little bit of damage there in some hexen on hexen violence. And he's moving down to the low ground, whereas msrm is doing that high ground creeping. And you'll notice no skulls used, because once the fiend appears, it appears on the low ground, and these shadow masses will focus it down. So on the last fiend we get it, or on the last skull I should say, we get a fiend, and I really like that because now the fiend can come take it. So instead of having to march all the way down, so seems like msrm may have done that a time or two before, and it seems like he may have done this before too. There's already a brute here waiting to start creeping on this camp. Meanwhile, floophead is also creeping his speed camp, and just a tad behind, but focusing on Gaunt tech, and we're already up to 6 Gaunts. Well, actually, it's 2 brutes and 4 Gaunts over here, so the armies are definitely looking kind of equal in size. So the msrm is just a little bit bigger on the supply. Of course, when it's that small supply difference, that could just be in fiends or something like that. And this health camp now going down as well. And more Gaunts being added for floophead. Whereas it looks like, oh yeah, no, there are more Gaunts coming this way as well. So both players focusing a little bit on their armies here. But we now see msrm trying to get on top of these creeping units, and as soon as he saw those fiends, he turned away from the shadow demons with an intention to fight, but the shadow demons are intent on following down. I'm going to say, we're going to chase you all the way back. And msrm had regrouped there, but is now getting on top. Ooh, and a few low Gaunts are able to be sniped there, and there's one shadow demon. No one wants to fight the shadow demon. Poor shadow demon. Just wants to die and donate his resources. But floophead taking the sort of long path back, and these fiends here, well, they're probably here just to capture this, but they're also going to get a little bit of a flank here. But yeah, there's just enough Gaunts here that the Gaunt DPS is pretty good against fiends with their bonus damage versus light, so they shredded those fiends pretty quickly, and floophead's able to regain control of the camp and also heal up, sending a Skull of Shedded to take the vision camp. And msrm goes back to get speedy legs. Doesn't like that he's trying to take the camp, and kills the skull. Sends a skull of his own to spy the what's going on's over here. And we see that the shrine is just about to finish while his shrine's already down, so that's usually a good sign. You know, hey, my eco timing or my expansion timing is a little bit faster. I might be a little bit ahead in this game. And so he's going to turn around and creep out the Luminite camp. Of course, the resources gained from the creeps and the resources gained from the camp are just going to help him stay a little bit more ahead. Maybe help him put down an early third. And it looks like there's... What's going on there, Mr. Imp? The Imp has instructions, but apparently... yeah, it needs to get new instructions. So msrm grabs that Imp and tells him what to do, and the lumberjack continues, and maybe we're going to see a third base going down here. Though he doesn't quite have the minerals yet. And it looks like floophead's trying to get, again, the same idea, just a little bit slower. And msrm scoops up the speedy cam and now gets on top of the gaunts, and it's those brutes, even though they were weak brutes, they go down and fiends pop, and the fiends are just doing crazy DPS, and we see this army get cleaned up, and now we've got a huge army. Well, we get a cancel on that base, and now these units are making their way in here. We see a pretty good reinforce out of floophead, although there's, you know, maybe equal numbers of gaunts here, maybe even more on msrm side. Plus, we've got all these brutes and fiends. And these poor gaunts get cornered in the back there, and we get a YGG out of floophead in game 1. Okay, here we are with game 2 in this best of 3, starring floophead in the blue Infernal and msrm in the red Infernal. And a pretty good match last game, but what we saw here was just a slightly different choice in tech. And again, we see msrm starting with a vault into a conclave, so sticking with his vault and conclave tech, which won him that first game. And floophead maybe switching it up, saying, hey, you went vault first last time and that worked for you, so I'm going to go vault first. Although he's going with a slightly different build. We don't see that conclave just yet. Now where's this imp going to go? Maybe he's going to build a conclave. He's out onto the map. And actually there's a second imp here. Something fishy's going on. We'll see what, we'll keep our eye on those imps. This Hexen scouted the wrong direction, or at least there is no right direction, as the cross spawns mean that both Hexens went to the wrong location. And I'm like, what is the Hexen doing? I was waiting for, it looks like the Brute and maybe some Gaunts to start creeping that speed camp. Knowing that that speed camp is not adjacent to floophead, deciding to take it. Floophead putting down a Shroud Stone right at the center, so that's where one of those imps was going, and the other one going here. So they both kind of have the same idea. They scouted, saw that their opponent was not near the speed camp, and then they went to take the speed camp. Both of them trying to keep these Shadow Masses. Well, actually, Floophead's trying to get these Fellhogs in there, but the farm wasn't there quite early enough to get Fellhogs spawning. We only have one on the map here now. I think it's every 20 seconds, so it takes a full minute for them to all spawn, which is one reason why you'll see some Infernal players sending that imp out earlier than it really needs to be to build the farm so that it can generate some Fellhogs before creeping. Now the Shroud Stone here is very helpful, and it's not just going to be helpful in the creeping, it's going to be helpful to maybe repel msrm. Although msrm has a pretty big army here, and we only see a single Brute and 2 Fiends here with the Hexen. The Hexen has to retreat as these Brutes come up to the front line, but the Shroud Stone has just got too much DPS. msrm doesn't want to fight into that, even if the army is kind of small. So he heads back, goes to his health camp. That means the vision camp remains in Floophead's control, and with cross spawns, that's going to be very advantageous. And Floophead heads to the energy camp next. Curious and interesting. I wonder what choice that might be. It was kind of closer proximity, so that might be why. Also, these big slimes give Therium, so he might be using this to just get a little bit of extra Therium before he gets over to the health camp. So we'll see. And then we also see msrm going for his energy camp for the same reason. It's sort of the next one in order of difficulty, if you will. So you'll often see that being creeped next. And now msrm is going maybe for the second health camp. And Floophead also going for the health camp, but his brutes are pretty low, so he does send his higher Brute up and then uses the Nightfall infestation on them. That's going to allow him to get more Fiends. Of course, the infest also is more DPS. And he's got a lot of Fiends popping out there. Well, 5, I presume, from the slimes. Single Scout Fiend heading in. Seeing a base is up. but only 3 imps there. How do we have... Okay, so we have 8 and 8. So it looks like a lot being committed to Therium here. And the second base only just now getting down for MSRM, but remember Floophead committed to an earlier base while MSRM was building his army. With that larger army, he's able to take this Luminite camp, and Floophead is just a little behind in the creeping, also creeping his side of the map, trying to get the health camp, but trying to steal this speed camp, and msrm goes to retake it. That also tells Floophead, hey, look at my whole army, it's right here, and that's how big it is. And that's probably why Floophead just decided, okay, I'm not going to, for instance, try and take this out, although he had almost all fiends there. That little Jerboa got trapped in those fiends and was forced to go for a run. Oh, I didn't notice here actually that msrm took out the Shroudstone here. The fiends redirected down to maybe try and stop that, but by the time they got there, the Shroudstone was already taken. These 3 fiends now are going to do some scouting of their own. There's a farm here that's not long for this world. Actually, these 3 fiends are going to try and take out the energy camp, and interesting, I like that Floophead could have sent those to take out the fiends, but then that would have given away his Spriggan tech, and he instead wants to kind of get a little bit of a jump, I assume. Now, msrm has so much map control here that, yeah, I think Floophead just decides, alright, whatever. I'm going to use them to capture some camps, because otherwise I have to fly around every single camp that's out there. And also sending some fiends out. But msrm is right on Floophead's doorstep, and Floophead's waiting on the doorstep, but he doesn't really have very much there. Fiends are going to get shredded by these gaunts. Some Spriggans are going to come back. Here they come, but there's not too many of them. They're going to be best against the brutes, because the brutes are heavy, but the gaunts are the ones that can hit them, so they kind of want to focus on the gaunts. And it looks like msrm decides to retreat from that, probably because there's just pretty good SimCity there. Oh, there was a Hellborn on the high ground. I didn't notice the Hellborn. And the Hellborn is, you know, if you're fighting into a choke like that, the Hellborn can do a lot of good damage to your gaunts. Okay, gaunts coming in, reinforcement, and so maybe we're seeing msrm. Okay, well, he put down a ton of production. Also went for a third. Well, his third's actually already up. It looks like third's already up for Floophead as well. So, but focused, or sent all his imps to be on Therium. Let's do a quick check here. We got 4 on the main. Notice it's only 4, but then 6 were sent down here. This is in enriched Therium, so it gets harvested quicker. And that will also balance when those 2 Therium patches run out, be more closer, you know, more closely related in time, hopefully balancing out the Therium income over the next few minutes. And it looks like, okay, Spriggans in the base here. It looks like msrm's still creeping, but the Spriggans are now here to harass. There are 6 Sprigs, but msrm just pumps out 6 gaunts and chases them away. So the Sprigs were trying to get some damage on top of the production, but they were attacking Conclaves, and Conclaves, of course, produce gaunts. You just need to go and make some reinforcements there. And so msrm stuck to the creeping. And his speedy leg gaunts come running out here, trying to get on top of the Sprigs. Managed to get 1 Sprig, and the rest of the Sprigs are going to retreat out there. The speedy legs run out. The Sprigs are going to try and steal the speed boost, which of course takes the global, smaller global bonus that the camps give you. And we'll take that away from msrm. And now they got the little lightning wings, we'll call them, as they're flying a little bit quicker. This is curious. So Floophead's putting down some buildings here to protect against this back door, which is a convenient way to get in. Considering he's walled up really nicely on the front, he doesn't want his back to be vulnerable. And msrm right out on the map trying to be kind of aggressive, whereas these sprigs now have come into the imp line and they're getting some free hits on the imps, but ooh, we see boom, 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 a bunch of gaunts get pumped out, and immediately msrm micros them to try and scare those Spriggans back away, and they actually tried to get up on the high ground, but a few of them were showing, and that was not good for floophead because then they aggroed onto these gaunts and were taken out. Meanwhile, that back door is being taken down by msrm, and those farms there, they haven't had time to make their fell hogs either, and they get taken out. And even though they're an early warning system for floophead, the warning is, watch out, here comes a giant army. We have shadow pliers in case those spriggans come back, but we do have molten touch on these hellborn. And look at how many burning gaunts we have there. It's beautiful to see your enemy's units on fire like that, but there's only really hellborn here. There's not a good front line. The first hellborn goes down. We have a magma down on top of them. You're trying to get your hellborn to hit those gaunts because that way, well, you can kill a lot of them. There's smaller units, so there's more splash damage. And then that's OGG. I assume that's what that means. I think that's a GG. I'm gonna assume that's a GG. We still have microing going on, so that means they're still in the game. Sometimes it's hard to tell in the observer, who says it made harbingers. Oh, he messed up with his micro, but it's a little bit too late because there goes the shrine and the spires, and there we get our GG. And he wishes he had played Vanguard. Well, maybe next time. Alright, so that's a quick 2-0 from msrm. Let's go into our next series.